So, I'm going to start today with a hard question. And it's a question that we don't necessarily like to talk about, but it's important. It's important. Because we're going to be talking about this thing that we call culture. And that's not easy to attain, is it? It's not easy to attain. So my question for you is, if inbound fails, why does it fail? No support, I hear. Go ahead and shout it out. Don't be shy. Commitment, execution. What else we got? Good, keep going. Okay, that was a big one, said by Gabriel. Leadership. I like that one. What else? Content and a lack of it. Good. What else? Fear. Good. What say you? Buy-in from the top. Amen to you, brother. Because I'm sure no one here has ever experienced the problem of getting buy-in from the top. It's coming? So, if we look at why inbound isn't working for some folks, what we have found, at least at the sales line, that there's certain things that are amiss. And I'm just going to mention a few to you right now, okay? The number one problem in our industry right now, far and away, without question, doesn't come down to strategy. It's actually a lack of buy-in from the top. That's number one. Number one. Now, we can't always help that, but that's number one. Now, number two problem, it stays that same theme. The number two problem is a lack of buy-in from the employees. Now, really quick question. If your employees are not bought in, what's the reason why? Leadership. Gabrielle said again. Leadership is the reason, because everything trickles down. This is a trickle-down business. And if your leadership is not bought in, it doesn't matter. So that's number two. Also, third thing. Nobody owns the thing. Nobody owns the thing. If I came to you right now and I said, by the way, everybody in the back, I would like to welcome you as well because you are important to us, and that's why I walk these aisles, because of this thing that we call social media, and I tried to be social. So thank you for coming today. Thank you. So if we came to you right now and said, who in your organization owns inbound? Who owns it? Could you say, who is that person? Because if you can't say it, we've got a problem. We got a problem. Sometimes you might call it a content manager, whatever you call it, but we got a problem, okay? Sometimes it comes down to strategy. But generally speaking, if you have the wrong strategy, it's because somebody has not given you the ability to bring in the people to have the right strategy or the right person in place. Right, Tyler? So sometimes it's strategy. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Thank goodness I can stop depending on my dang memory at this point. You know what I'm saying? By the way, give me a round of applause for just being awesome. Okay, good. Next thing. Lack of tools. Do you realize how many times someone has told me, Marcus, I believe in this thing called HubSpot, but I haven't gotten permission yet from management? Same deal. And one final one that I missed earlier, and that is silos. Raise your hand high, and because we're all friends, we can do this. Raise your hand high if there is a silo problem in your organization, especially between sales and marketing. Yes. And if you're not raising your hand, you will be soon, because it is a big problem. It is a big problem. But if you look at every single one of these, it starts with number one. Everything in this industry, and I mean everything, comes down to buy-in, and that is the great battle that we're in. And what's interesting is, over these last 5 or 6 years of getting thousands, and I kid you not, thousands of emails, the one that I've gotten more than any other isn't about, hey, Marcus, I need more traffic, leads, and sales. It's, hey, Marcus, I can't get the buy-in that I'm looking for. It's a big problem. It's a big problem. So I want to tell you a quick story about a lady that I think is pretty amazing. And her name is Krista Catrola. Now, this is her employee page, and she works for a company called Block Imaging International. Now, Block Imaging, what they do is they sell refurbished medical imaging equipment. In other words, they'll take like an old MRI machine that's been put out to pasture, they'll refurb it, and they'll sell it to a health organization that can't necessarily afford a new one because a new MRI costs about $1.5 million to $2 million. When it comes to Krista, she said to me, she'd been reading this philosophy of they ask, you answer. Let's become the premier teachers in our space. And she said, I believe in this, Marcus. I believe in the ask, you answer. I want us to become the Wikipedia of our space. But whenever I go to sales, whenever I go to management, they, of course, would tell her something. And what did they tell her? What did they tell her when she would say, let's produce these videos. Let's produce these articles. What did management, what did sales tell her? I don't have the time. And by the way, in life, when somebody tells you they don't have the time, what are they actually telling you? Just so we're clear. That thing that you just explained to me, I don't value it enough. It is never. This industry and your success or failure has nothing to do with time. It has everything to do with the value of the thing, thus going back to this thing that we call buy-in. So it's not about time, and it's also arguably not about resources. And so she said something that ultimately would change my life. Because when she came to me, I was still in this cross-section between being a pool guy and becoming what is today, I don't know what you want to call me, but not a pool guy. And so she said to me, Marcus, although I'll always be a pool guy because they're awesome, I want you to come out to my team and convince everyone that they want to be a part of marketing. Raise your hand if you would like everyone on your team to be a part of marketing. Go ahead and raise your hand. If you're not raising your hand, you're dead. You're dead. Good, good. We all want marketing to be a part of the organization. So the question is how? That was the first time, and this was, I guess, about 5 years ago, that I did what we call today an inbound workshop. And we went there, and what's cool is we have this really rustic photo of the event. So that's dorky me on the right. This is their team. We had about 65 people in the room. Lots of nerdy engineers, lots of confident salespeople. We had the whole mix. And what was really cool is what we explained so clearly so they could finally get it, is we gave them the what? We gave them the how. We gave them the why. They understood their individual impact and how, if they embraced this philosophy of inbound, and if they said, okay, what's here, let's put it on that screen, that everything would change. And so they did it. They did it. They started to participate. In fact, within a couple weeks after this event, Krista sent me an email and she said, Marcus, I'm inundated in content. I've got way too much content now. Before she couldn't get it, now she was inundated. And just to give you an idea, this is a shot from their webpage, but here's just a handful of the people that are producing content for the company. They're producing videos. They're producing articles. Everybody is all in because they understood the why and they understood the impact on them. And then because of that, really cool things started to happen in terms of their company. Now, we started this process just before that little bump in 2011. The traffic was flat, and she was a frustrated CMO, Krista was. She was just so ready to do what she wanted to do. She finally got to do what she wanted to do, and today, Block Imaging is getting over 60,000 visitors to their site a month. That's just traffic, because you know there's more. Here's a direct quote from Krista. Krista says, because of insourcing, in other words, using our employees to produce the content, of course, with her help and the content team's help. And because of content marketing, we can account for at least $20 million in sales we otherwise never would have gotten. Furthermore, today we can say it constitutes, it being inbound, inbound constitutes 40% of revenue. Now, do you think they have any problem justifying whatever spend on marketing today? Do you think she has any problem justifying anything she asks from management today? Krista gets what she wants because she earned it. And furthermore, just a couple months ago, and this was so great, she sent me an email from somebody on her team. I love this email. I think it's the essence of what a culture represents. Nobody likes to be read to, but I'm going to read this one thing to you. So cool. Remember, this is from a team member of Krista's, and this is what it says. Hey guys, y'all may be sick of hearing these stories, but I still get a kick out of it. I just had a conference call with a pain management center in Arkansas. Come to find out, before we even spoke, the purchaser had printed off several of my blogs to bring to her board meeting. It enabled her to answer questions on comparison models, budgets, what equipment they needed, etc. She had read and seen so much of our content, she said she couldn't wait to talk to me. She told me who my competitors were and how much they were quoting. Even when I told her we would likely charge more, she said, "But I trust you guys. I'd rather work with you." I realize they don't all line up like this, but when our funnel is working at its best, it is so sweet. I'm sure I could still find a way to screw up the deal, but the point is, I couldn't be better set up to succeed. The effort to produce the content is worth it. Thank you to the stellar efforts of the marketing team for really setting us apart. Chris, that is reality, and that is 5 years into Inbound, because my friends, Inbound is not a program. Programs, they come, they go. They're born and they die. That is a culture that has permeated the entire organization. Do me a favor, Krista, and stand up really quick. Yes, you shy, wonderful thing. Give her a big round of applause. She represents so many of us in here right now that are stallions, that are frustrated because you feel like you've been fenced in and not able to do what you know you should be doing. I want to help you to run, to stop being fenced in as a marketer, to get that buy-in that is so critical, to make it a culture. Now, we've got a couple different steps. At the sales line, we have been literally studying this philosophy, if you will, of culture and inbound, and we found that there's 9 keys. That if you want to make this work, you got to do these 9 things. And by the way, anybody that wants this deck, even before they produce it, just email me directly and I'll send you the deck. Okay, it's marcus@thesalesline.com. Really simple, marcus@thesalesline, and you'll have this. In other words, if you don't write anything down, don't worry, you'll have it sent to you. Okay, so here's the first one. God bless Jack Black, maybe one of the greatest actors of his generation, right? And so if I came to your organization right now, and this is a critical question, I really want you to think about it honestly. If I came to you right now, in your sales team right now, and I asked your sales team, what is HubSpot, what does it do, and what's its purpose? And if I asked your sales team or management, what is inbound marketing, what would they say? What percentage of your team could actually answer that question well? I'm here to tell you that if you're trying to do inbound and your team cannot answer that question, then we're off to the wrong foot. We need to make sure they get it, because words matter. They always have and they always will. They need something to hold on to. To them is inbound the idea of being helpful, of being the best teachers in the world, of making sure that when anybody comes to us, be it digital or in person, that they have a solution to the problems. Because ultimately, that's what inbound is. It's not all these fancy phrases that we call it all the time. And because we're so stuck on marketing-based words, we tend to lose in translation what we're really talking about. Words matter. Second thing, have you ever taken the time? You know, we've heard so much about Simon over the years. This whole idea of why has been happening for years. But what Simon did is he crystallized it in a simple way that we could all say, yes, I get it. What, how, why? And once again, if we went to your team right now and we said, why are we doing inbound for you personally? No, not just for the organization, but for you personally. Why are we doing this thing called inbound? Because if they cannot answer that, once again, we're off to the wrong foot. Now, number 3, This is the one thing that we keep seeing that companies forget. I'll tell you what doesn't work. If you leave inbound fired up, you're excited for new strategies, you want to start producing this content or that video or using that medium, and you send out an email to your team that says, hey, I got a great idea, let's everybody start blogging. How do you think that's going to work? It ain't going to work too well. It ain't going to work too well. There is an amazing correlation between the organizations that gather their team together and they say, as a group, and they discuss as a group, this is the what, this is the how, this is the why, this is the impact on the collective, this is the impact on the individual. These are the things you do in a workshop, and you give everybody that vision. If you haven't had a hands-on workshop with your organization, and by the way, we believe firmly, because we see it again and again, the organizations that have at least 2 of these workshops a year with their entire content team, and by the way, that's everybody on sales, because everybody in sales has to be there, and everybody in management must be there, and anybody else you think that might help produce content should be there. And if you're a huge organization, that's fine too, because we just break it up, but we still have to take the time to have that catalyst event where everybody says, okay, I get it. I get it. It's number 3. Number 4. How many times have organizations said, I think I want to do this inbound thing, and they've delved the responsibility out to multiple people, that old phrase, multiple hats, and nobody in the organization actually owns the thing. If you don't have an inbound manager that owns this, a content manager, whatever you want to call it, but if you don't have that person right now, or if that person isn't yet titled, please go back to the office and title it. Him or her, let them take ownership and run. Give them the baton and say, this is yours. You own this now. I'm going to follow up with you, but you own it. Now, some of you say, well, I'm the only one, Marcus. That's okay. For 2 years of my life when I was just a pool guy, I was the only one. I was the one that was in sales, doing sales all day long, driving all day, trying to talk to my team. And at night, at 12 a.m., at 1 a.m., I would sit there at the kitchen table slapping those keys because I didn't have a choice. I didn't have a choice. I didn't watch TV for 2 years. And Netflix, it just came out. That sucks. That's life. That's inbound. Own it. 5th. So many of us outsource content. I'm not saying outsource content is bad, but the best outsourced content is when the outsourcer comes to your team and gets the stuff that's in here out of their head and onto that screen, onto that video, onto that white paper, that article, that ebook, whatever that thing is. It enables them to say, okay, this is who we are. Your content is the soul of your business. And if your soul is represented by somebody that knows nothing about your company, I have concerns for you and your brand. I'm not saying that these companies that we see downstairs, like a Writer's Access or a Scripted, aren't good, but I'm saying if they're going to be great, they're going to be totally engaged with you. Now, the reason why I'm showing you this person right here, his name is Matt Curry. Now, my friend Cynthia knows Matt. He's kind of a crazy guy, and he's an owner of what is a hybrid technology. Nobody would ever confuse Matt with, say, a Victor Hugo in the sense of he's not a writer. He doesn't want to write blog articles. But what he can do, especially if somebody sits down with him and interviews him, he can come up with some great content. What you're seeing here is just one little clip when we did video day with that company. Now with him, and by the way, any content manager can do this with any salesperson or any other person in an organization. It's amazing how little we do this. With him, we sat down for 2 hours just doing questions and answers and questions. And from that 2-hour bit of time, we came up with 20 new videos. 20 videos that the sales team uses now every single day. 20 videos that were transcribed and turned into articles. And it was the foundation of their content marketing strategy. And it took 2 hours from somebody that if I had asked them to write a blog article, would have taken 2 months. We have got to find a way, if we're going to be successful, to figure out what is the way that the team communicates. Not the way that we, the content manager or the CEO, whoever communicates. How does the team, sales, engineering, shipping, servicing, whatever it is, how do they communicate? What we have found at the sales line is there's 4 types of communicators in every single organization. 4. First one, they're the writers. They're the people that you go to. You can actually get content from them. It's not like pulling teeth. But here's the problem. That's less than 10% of your organization on average. Those are the writers. The second group of people, they're the actors. The actors in this case would be somebody like a Matt Curry. Matt, he can get on camera. He's not afraid of it. He can talk. He will own the camera. And I'm telling you what, your salespeople, many of them are actors, and they're potentially great actors, and you just got to give them the platform. Don't be afraid. And if you're great, your content manager is great at questions, you will make them look like a superstar no matter what. The third one, we call them the talkers. Now the talkers, by the way, one person could be multiple, but the talkers are the people in your organization that have it here. But they might be that quiet engineer that doesn't want to get on camera, but he or she has so much value to give, and then some great person like Krista comes to them, meets with them once a month and says, hey, let's have this conversation about those questions that I gave you the other day. And because of that, she turns that into a beautiful blog article, and of course that quiet engineer gets all the credit, and for the first time feels like I have a bigger role in this organization. One thing I didn't tell you about block imaging, which was so fascinating, is one of their lead engineers turned out that he had an English degree. Today, believe it or not, he's their content manager. Can you believe that? But he was also a really shy guy. Nobody had any idea that's what he could do. But he can. And the final one is the questioners. These are the people in your organization that are hearing questions that you should be blogging about, that you should be producing content about, but we just haven't taken the time. Every single person you have in customer service and pretty much every single employee you have potentially is a questioner. Identify every single employee, where they fall in there, and if you do that, and if you give them the what, the how, and the why, you're going to start to see that you have way more content than you ever did before. Am I making any sense? Making any sense? Good. We've tested every single thing you see here. Number 6. Is HubSpot a sales tool or is it a marketing tool? Primarily, is HubSpot a sales tool or is it a marketing tool? See, this is an interesting debate. I heard sales because you know where this is going. HubSpot, my friends, is a sales tool. Primarily. Because all decisions in business are made on what? Sales. Sales. Management makes decision on sales. And if you explain HubSpot as a sales tool, it will dramatically change your ability to get impact or buy-in from the entire team. But you talk about this and you talk about inbound as it is a sales strategy. Everything comes back to sales. One of the great mistakes that HubSpot made early on was calling this marketing automation. This is sales automation. That's what it is. Marketing, yes, happens to be a part of it. Number 7. And this is another one that we see again and again and again. If you go to your team and you say to your team, you know, if you all could get that blog article written this week, that would be really great. How do you think that's going to work out? I would love to say that it worked out every single time, but even if they get it, it doesn't always work out that way. In fact, you need to treat this like payroll. When was the last time for you that actually handle payroll that you said on a Friday when it was payroll, you said, you know what, if we get a chance to do payroll today, let's try to get to that point if we get a moment, let's get these other things done, but if we get that opportunity, let's go ahead and take care of those, get our people paid. Never happened. Because payroll is a religion. Producing content usually is a pastime. No, it has to be religion. If you want to be great at inbound, it's who you are. It is a religion. It is a religion. Number 8. We have found that the average HubSpot user is tapping into about 20% of the tool. You have got to be great at owning this tool. You have got to have a love of learning for it. You managers, you've got to spend the money to make sure your people are trained. It takes time. What's crazy is my buddy George and I, we have a podcast called the Hubcast. If you're not listening, by the way, you're crazy, because it's the only podcast that talks just about HubSpot. It's every single week. But here's the thing. Every single week, we are adding or teaching new tools. If I didn't have the Hubcast, and if I didn't actually have to learn the new tools every week, I would miss out on 50% of what HubSpot has done over the last year at least, because they have done so very much. You have to have a love of learning and a lifetime of learning of the tool, not just of the strategy. And then finally, and this is so often the great divide, CEO or management. Because some companies, I know your CEO you've got 50,000 people, it's a little bit different, but management cares. And I'm not just talking about they are like aware of it, they are involved. It doesn't mean necessarily that they are the ones producing the content, but it means that they are actively engaged. When it comes to those content meetings, they are there. It's more than just one report a month that they get from you in the marketing department, because that doesn't work. That doesn't work. And speaking of marketing departments, how many of you are primarily not in marketing, but in the sales department of your company? Raise your hand. That is less than 5% of this room. And that is a problem. Until we start bringing our entire sales team to inbound, we will continue to struggle to help them catch the vision. You guys are going to be so fired up, and your ability to translate that when you get back to the office is going to be difficult. And if you've ever been to inbound, you know exactly what I'm talking about, right, Steph? Because you have lived that. And so many of you have said, geez, if they could just catch my vision. They don't catch your vision unless, for some weird reason, people do things when they hear it from outside of the company. If we bring it up within the company, all of a sudden, they don't want to do it. Do you know how many times we've given a workshop, and after the workshop, when everybody is so excited and sales is like, we're totally into this, and then the content manager comes up to me and says, Marcus, I don't get it. I've been talking about this for 3 years. And you just said, well, I've said for 3 years, Marcus. And I say, I know. I said the same thing. But for some reason, they listen to outside sources. Inbound is outside source after outside source. You got to bring that team. You say, why are you so passionate about this, Marcus? Because I get so many of these emails. The frustration is rampant when it comes to marketing departments. It is time that we take this industry to where it needs to be, and that this becomes truly a sales and marketing conference. I'll tell you about this cool cat named Steve. Now, I don't think Steve is here because he's shy. But he lives in Boston, and his company is called Yale Appliance. Raise your hand if you've ever heard of Yale Appliance. Raise your hand. If you have bought an appliance in the last couple of months, trust me, you have read something from Yale Appliance if you did research online. Now, the one advantage that they had when they got going is this guy, Steve, he actually believed in inbound, but he wasn't having any success. Specifically, once he started inbound, for the first year, this was his traffic growth. By the way, if you've been doing inbound for a year and this is your traffic growth, this isn't enough. This isn't what it should look like. And so he said, what is my problem, Marcus? Well, there's a few different problems. The main problem is he wasn't talking about what consumers actually cared about. But he was humble enough to say, I've been doing it wrong, and then we started obsessing over the questions that consumers ask. And once again, he was willing to talk about it, as you're going to see in a second. But it went beyond that because he wasn't leveraging his team. His team, his salespeople, they were the ones hearing the questions all day long. They were the one answering the questions all day long. It wasn't necessarily Steve. And so we said, sales now is going to be a part of this. Once again, we had a workshop, but almost everybody in the room was on the sales team. What's been the result? Well, this is just a shot from their website. If you get a chance, go to yaleappliance.com. This is really fascinating. but you'll see their blog, and then you see the person, and you see the total number of articles that that salesperson has produced for the company, which, by the way, if you are asking your employees to produce content, you should be praising them and showing them and certainly not worried that somebody's going to come and try to pick them up. It is our job to build the brand of our employees. That is our responsibility within management and with ownership. We should build them up, and they should feel like they have a sense of ownership themselves. And so, at Yale, though, here's the catch. If you work at Yale, you are required to participate in the content production efforts. If you do not, you don't work at Yale. And that's in their job description. And you say it's bold. Yes, it is. But what does bold equal? I'll show you what bold equals. So, first of all, because he's got guts, because he's willing to be transparent, this is the type of content that Steve has produced. Now, I want you to look at this for a second. You do not see this in industries, and all of us can produce this type of content, B2B, B2C, it doesn't matter, by the way. Ultimately, it's P2P, it's the same daggone thing, it's the same daggone philosophies, and when it's all said and done, every single business is built on the same fundamental truth, which is trust. Everything is built on trust, and the moment we say, everything in my business success is built on this thing called trust, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to get it, then all of a sudden everything changes, and we stop talking about what we can and cannot do on our website, and we start obsessing over what the customer would want if they were in that situation, if they were in learning mode, not what the business would want. And so Steve produced an article that is the least serviced, most reliable appliance brands, review/ratings. Now, he took 12, I think at least 12 brands that he sells. And by the way, he sells a lot of stuff. And he took those 12 brands, and over the course of a year, he tracked every single service call for every single brand. And then when he was done doing that, he produced this article showing the most serviced and the least serviced appliances and brands that he sells. So first of all, do you think that was gutsy, yes or no? Yes. 1%. 1% of our industry is like this. We got to get this to the 99% because this is what moves the needle. This is where the magic is. Now, furthermore, how do you feel like his vendors reacted when they saw themselves ranked against their biggest competitors? They didn't like it, but they also knew one thing. They had to deal with it, didn't they? And as a business, would you like to have the leverage, or do you want all your vendors to have the leverage? Trust me, the first one is significantly more effective as a company. And so now the ones that have been messing up, do you think all year they've been trying to make it right? And of course the answer is yes. And oh, by the way, if you want to be an agent of change in your industry, start talking about what's wrong with the industry in a way that we are the solution. That's Steve. So what's the result? Well, you take an article like this. He gets hundreds of comments from all over the world for people buying appliances. Here's just one. This is from Cynthia. So Steve, your objective appliance analysis and recommendations are incredibly valuable. Thank you so much for putting it out here for clueless homeowners like me to read. I'm on the West Coast, so I can't repay your generosity by giving you my business. All I can give is my heartfelt thanks. That's inbound. That's what's possible for every single one of us if we go beyond and say, what is the customer obsessing over? And we get the buy-in that we're looking for. And because they've done this so much, if you look in June of 2012, that's when they had their workshop. That's when they said, we're going to believe in insourcing. That's when they said, we're going to start to talk about the questions that people have, not what we think is cool, but we're going to obsess over the consumer, obsess over their questions, and we're going to make sure sales is involved. And because of that, today, they're averaging over 400,000 visitors a month. They're getting more traffic now than those big appliance brands that they're selling in their showroom. And they're doing it because they are the leader of their organization and of their industry, and they own it now. And of course, the manufacturers are coming to them because they hold this industry in the palm of their hand. And so you say, well, that's really nice, Marcus, but what does it mean to the bottom line? Because everything in this industry ultimately is about bottom line. We've got to show revenue. So, first thing that they've done, in the last month, they've opened their second store in Boston. They're expanding. They're starting to look into e-commerce because they're being forced to because of how much traction and activity and people want to do business with them. But here is where the rubber really meets the road. I want you to look at these numbers. This is sick. This is a shot from their HubSpot analytics, a screenshot that I took last week. All-time contacts, 134,000. Leads, 88,000. Marketing qualified leads, 7,900. And closed out customers in HubSpot, 6,025. Do you think they have any struggle justifying inbound marketing? Do you think, now here's the thing, how many of their employees do you think are aware of the fact that inbound has led to at least 6,000 customers? The answer is all of them. That's exactly right. Because they share it across the board. That is a culture. That's why we do what we do. That is your goal. But we've got to get everybody in. We've got to use the tool the right way. Do you realize how many in this room alone, and this is not a knock on you, but how many in this room are not even closing out customers? We know we've got a bunch of leads, but we haven't closed the leads out to see how many have actually converted. We've got to stop that. We've got to start doing this the right way. Show your value. And as a marketing department, if you're in marketing and if you want to get a raise, you start showing numbers like this because you'll quickly justify any raise that you're looking for. I want you to get a raise. I want you to get a raise. Now, I'm going to close out with one little thought on this. And I always talk about this because to me, this is the essence of inbound. By the way, quick show of hands. How many know my story? Raise your hand. My background story. Okay? For those that don't know, I started a swimming pool company in 2001. In 2008, the economy crashed. And I was this close to losing my business. I talked to 3 consultants, and they said, Marcus, you need to file bankruptcy. But the problem was, if I filed bankruptcy, I was going to lose my home. My 2 business partners were going to lose their homes. And I couldn't do that. That's when I discovered HubSpot and this thing called Inbound. To make a long story short, River Pools became the most trafficked swimming pool website in the world. Today, we get about 500,000 visitors a month. But it all happened because we didn't have a choice. We truly saw it as a religion. But the thing about it is when I wasn't doing inbound and I was just slogging my way through business, my life was a struggle. There was a period of time for 5 years where I didn't get to see my kids. And I got 4 of them little jokers. That's right. We got good water in Virginia. And so, my wife literally, and she will tell you this, she said I was resigned to the idea that this was my life. That's not why we are in business. You are in business, and you came here to Inbound not so you could generate more traffic, leads, and sales. Yes, that's nice. Yes, that is the goal. But you came here to do that which you value most. You came here so you have more time to do that thing, because that's the one thing that we can't produce more of. Whether you're in marketing, in sales, whether you're in management, everything comes down to your core why. For me, my life has changed so much now that over the next 3 months, I'm traveling the world, and you say, well, now you're away from your family again. True, but not necessarily true, because so that's my oldest daughter. Her name is Danielle. She's 14. She's pretty stinking awesome. She's leaving school for the first semester of her freshman year in high school, and she's on the road with Dad. And she's seeing the world. And she's seeing the world because of inbound, because of what's happened. And you can follow her story, by the way, and your daughter or your teenager can follow her story on travelingwithdad.com. But she doesn't even realize, she can't remember the fact that she didn't see me 7 years ago. I left before she woke up, and I got back after she went to sleep. And so as you go about inbound, and as you consider all of these sessions you're taking, don't ever forget why you're doing what you're doing and the impact it can make on your personal life, because I promise you, it's significantly greater than anything you and I can possibly imagine. Thank you very much.